is your home for picks, props, and futures for tonight's action. Bettor Sports Betting wants to know what picks you're playing tonight. Tell us in the live chat on YouTube, Twitter, and the Bettor Sports Network app. This is Bettor Sports Betting with Fantasy Alarm's Dan Servodidio.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome in here to the Bettor Sports Betting Show on Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Appreciate everyone joining us here on a Thursday afternoon. Very small slate tonight in the Major League Baseball world. But, me and James Grande are both here to give you guys some picks today because that's what we do on Thursdays with each other. What's up, man?
Happy Thursday, Servo. We're ever so close to the week. No, that's not my wife cooking. That is me smelling the weekend here, Servo. That's me smelling the weekend. We're ever so close. Happy Thursday to you. I hope you're you're doing well today. Let's win. Let's win today. Let's get some winning picks out there. I know we're gonna talk some NBA, some NFL. We're gonna do some MLB today, but let's get some winners out there today.
Yeah, we got Justin Fensterman coming on, Fensty, to talk some NFL futures odds and props that he's he does these ADP videos over at Fantasy Alarm, if you've seen those. So I wanted to ask him about some of his players that he has rising, falling, and some of the props if you're looking to bet those. But also, he's an NBA guy, as are you. So I'm glad we have both you guys together just to kind of break down some of the latest, Dame Lillard trade rumors, James Harden stuff, just the futures and odds for the upcoming season now that free agency is pretty much all in the rear view. We have these couple last, big trades to go down, but a lot of the big name guys are already off the board. So, it will be nice to get him on to see where he's at because we had Adam Rodas on to kind of break down some futures and see where he's at. But it's been a couple weeks later now, so it's good to take stock to see where we might be trending and see where Fancy's leaning. So that'll be cool to get him on. We have a few games tonight to get to. We'll give you guys some picks, but wanting to just kind of break down first some of the recent trades that have gone down in the Major League Baseball with the trade deadline less than a week away. And we've had a couple moves within the last 24 hours here. The big one late last night, the Angels have got Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez from the White Sox. And I'm wondering because we also got kind of news that Ohtani is not being moved at the deadline. The Angels have made it known publicly that they are not trading Shohei Ohtani away. He pitched the first game of this doubleheader and was pretty lights out against the Tigers. So and they're on, they've won a bunch of games lately, so they're looking to buy at the trade deadline here, and they get Giolito, who's a big piece for their rotation. Lopez is more of a bullpen guy, and up and down, but just some depth in the bullpen for them. And they might go out and get a couple other guys, but right now, Angels plus 700 to make the playoffs. Does this? What's your vibe with the Angels? Is it worth betting on them to make the playoffs? Is Giolito moving the needle that much?
Like this is so I like the ad. Like if you're going for it, if you're the Angels, Lucas Giolito is obviously in need. They needed a front end starter. Like going into a postseason with Ohtani, sure, but your third starter was one of Patrick Sandoval, Griffin Canning, or Tyler Anderson. Like you were not winning any series with that as your third option. Ohtani already, does enough, and you needed to add a starter. So from that standpoint, I like the addition. I think Giolito has been a very good pitcher for 3 seasons in a row. He has no hitter on his resume. Like he's become the pitcher we kind of thought he was when he was initially with Washington and then traded early on in his career. Does this move the needle enough for me? Like, I don't know. Like, obviously the health of Mike Trout is one thing that, that's an elephant in the room because he wasn't playing well prior to the injury. Yeah. The biggest elephant in the room is like, sure, could they make the playoffs? They're 3.5 out behind Toronto. Toronto needs to add pieces as well. And things haven't been going as smoothly, or at least, in rumor, like there's no rumors that Toronto's adding anything as of right now. Maybe they make the playoffs. We'll have to see. Like, as of now, if nobody else made moves, then sure, they might sneak in. But you got to think that the Yankees are rumored to make moves. Is Texas going to get better? Is Baltimore going to add a frontline starter? What's Boston going to do? They're trending in the right direction, and they're getting Trevor Story back soon. Like, Toronto obviously sees this, or like, we probably should make a move as well. Like, so do I think the Angels make the playoffs? As of right now, I can say yes, because I do think this shores up the front end of the rotation. The issue with this is if they don't win the World Series one and Ohtani doesn't re-sign two, it's a colossal fail, because Giolito's a rental to begin with, and then you went for it and you got nothing for Shohei Ohtani. Like, I've been pretty firm on that belief that, like, sure, you can go for it, but you got to get something. He doesn't want to re-sign there. Like, he doesn't. So I don't know.
Well, and that's interesting, that a whole dynamic, because maybe the fact that they are trying to compete here, they're actually buyers. They're getting Giolito. They might get another piece or two here before the deadline. Maybe this is enough to kind of help Ohtani be more confident to go out and re-sign this contract. I'm trying to look through Twitter, because there was a quote for him right after this game. He pitched today, as I mentioned. There was a quote from him.
I see it too. I'm looking at it right now too.
You're looking at
just reading it.
So he says, Sam Blum, writer for The Athletic for the Angels, says, until last year, the team's situation, we had to be sellers. Basically talking about how, like, this is the first, I think this is the first time in my 6 years that we've been buyers. We've been sellers the last 5 years, so this is new to me. I just want to get to know the new guys and welcome them in and compete all together. Like, this might be a thing where he's like, all right, we're actually buying. Like, this team is trending up. So even if they don't, win the World Series, or maybe they just miss out on the playoffs, maybe the fact that they are actually trying to compete and not, blowing it up right now is enough for him to re-sign. And maybe this trade will be a win in the end, and other trades, even if they don't make the playoffs. But they're 3.5 games out of the wild card right now. And you mentioned, the Yankees, Red Sox above them. It's not like the Rays, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Astros, or Blue Jays are going away. So it's going to be tough for them to make it, but plus 700 is interesting.
It's good odds.
By the way,
it's good. They're good. Like, they're led by Shohei Ohtani, right? There's obviously a good bet at minus 700 for them to make that.
Yeah, well, I'd take a chance on it for, it's not like they're 6 games back. They're 3.5. Right. It's not too much. And you get, if all of a sudden you see the Yankees going the opposite way, or one of these other teams. But yeah, and then the other big trade before we give some picks out for tonight was Ahmed Rosario going to the Dodgers in a trade with the Guardians, and Kike Hernandez, a little bit earlier than that, but Rosario is probably the bigger name, especially for the Guardians, giving him away for Noah Syndergaard and another piece. But the Dodgers, does this kind of make you more confident that they now have a much better infielder to shore up that infield with Rosario? Dodgers plus 240 to win the NL, plus 500 to win the World Series. Does this make them more of a contender, or still think there might be a piece or two away at the deadline?
I still think they're a piece away, because they still need pitching.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things they need, they went into the year with Julio Urias as their ace, and he's been anything but that. He's been pretty bad this year. They've been deficient at shortstop the entire year. That's been apparent. I mean, they're playing they've been playing Miguel Rojas and Chris Taylor and Mookie Betts at times at shortstop, right? Like, they're no one that we would think of or classify as like a championship winning shortstop. Rosario's been underwhelming with the bat. He's a good defender. We know he's better offensively than he's shown, but he has been pretty bad of late. Or just this entire year. It's fine. There's clear issues, and it starts with their pitching. Like, their rotation on IL is as good as rotations in Major League Baseball. Buehler, Kershaw, Dustin May, Ryan Pepiot. Like, it's a good IL rotation. We don't know who's going to be back. Like, May is done for the year. Buehler's done for the year. Kershaw is going to return. So, like, they're going to go into a postseason with Clayton Kershaw, who's been riddled with injuries over X amount of years. Julio Urias, who's been a shell of himself. Tony Gonsolin, who me and you have both sat up here and said regression is on the way. Yep. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Bobby Miller's a rookie. Shaheen's a rookie. Grove's a rookie. Like, Rosario is fine because their shortstop position sucked to begin with. They need pitching.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. I would not bet against them to win not bet for them to win the NL unless they made another move to get a pitcher. Now, are they going to do that? Probably. They can trade Miller, Shaheen and Grove to anyone they want because they're top prospects, right? Like, they could add a front end starter, but until that, and maybe that's why, like, plus 240 is the best odds you're going to get if they make a move for a pitcher, right? If you think that they're going to make a move for a front end starter, then maybe you do bet plus 240. But if you don't think that they're going to get a front end starter, and again, they have the pieces to do it. They have one of the best farm systems in baseball. We've seen a lot of these starters already make their way to the major leagues, including some guys like Michael Busch, who's an infielder. Like, they have good pieces. If they don't make a move, they are not winning this. I don't care how good their offense is. They're not going to outpitch anybody in this in the playoffs.
Our producer, Heavy T, Tyler Soto, is saying in our chat that they're rumored to be looking at Lance Lynn. Listen, after what we've seen from him, if that's the move they make, I might bet against them because unless, of course, he's going to go to the Dodgers and become like an ace. But I don't think that's going to happen. He's been struggling, like, especially if it's him versus, like, if they get Marcus Stroman, who we saw yesterday too. I'd rather have Stroman if the Cubs are selling him off. So, I mean, we know they're not going to go Tani, so that's out the window for this season at least. Right. And we know, there's been a couple other names floating around. Like, the White Sox have also said they're not trading Dylan Cease, which is interesting. They just traded away Giolito, obviously, to the Angels, and Lynn. Another name that could be on the move, but Cease is apparently staying as they're looking to probably contend next year. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see with the Dodgers. I agree with you, though. They need pitching. They need probably at least another starter and probably another piece in the bullpen. They just need some help in the pitching because their offense has not been the issue this year.
No.
All right, let's give some picks out to the people before we talk some NBA and NFL with Justin Fensterman. What's your best bet for tonight?
So my best bet, I'm going to go Will Brennan of the Cleveland Guardians, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. That's minus 125 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. Look, Will Brennan, like, this is a pretty good number, minus 125 for a guy who has been really bad, to say the least, this year, and he's been really bad, especially lately. Over his last 60 plate appearances, 280 WOBA, a 100 ISO against right-handed pitching. And Dylan Cease is coming in to this start in the midst of probably his best stretch of the year. This game is the lowest. The Guardians have one of the lowest implied run totals on the board. And Cease, for what it's worth, struggles a little bit with lefties. And that's been, like, the main concern overall this year. Mm-hmm. But when you pare it down, and I always talk about bigger sample size tells you more of the data than it does. But during this recent stretch where Cease has been really good, lefties just have a 287 WOBA against them. So I'm betting on Dylan Cease tonight. Will Brennan under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at minus 125.
I like it. It's not often on this show we go with under offensive props, but I see you got this one. You got another one coming up in a little bit. So rooting against some hitters tonight. Sucks for them, I guess. But when you got some good pitchers on the mound like Cease, then you got to go with it.
Right.
All right,
Right.
I'll flip the script and I'll root for offense here. I like the Cubs team total over 4.5. This has been a bet I've been riding all week on this show. If you guys have been listening and watching, and it's just cashing every day. And I'm not going away from it here because the Cubs are red hot. They are averaging 7 runs per game since the All-Star break. Against right-handed pitching, by the way, a 417 WOBA. 224 ISO, 335 batting average since the All-Star break against righties. They got Miles Michaelis here. I mentioned their offense, averaging 7 runs per game. They've been over this team total, over 4.5 runs in 9 of their last 11 games too. So they're putting up big totals. They did again last night, but they're also consistently scoring 5+ runs a lot. But Michaelis, his last start was against these Cubs. Gave up 6 runs on 11 hits. So that doesn't bode well, I think. Just, seeing him back-to-back starts. I don't see him having a lot of success here. He's allowed 4+ runs on his own in 6 of his last 9 starts now as well. And the starts he didn't do that was against some favorable matchups against, like the White Sox, the Marlins, and the Nationals twice in this stretch. So I think Michael's going to have a little issues with this red-hot Cubs lineup. I didn't know which way to go for the money line and stuff with this game, but I still I just think the Cubs offense in general is going to get it done. So I like their over team total.
Yeah, and you don't know what Michaelis is thinking going into these starts because his name has been swirling around in trade rumors, and the general manager flat out said we're selling. Like he straight up was like, yeah, we're selling. Like we're gonna at the deadline, we're getting rid of pieces. So Michaelis is at the front of everyone's tongue because him, Flaherty, like that seemingly is those are the pieces that people want. They want starters, and rightfully so. Like never a shortage of starting pitching needed. So I like that. The Cubs offense has been really waking up too. Like they didn't get to Lynn early last night, and then there was just a barrage of offense. So I love that, Servo. I think the Cubs they're one of my favorite stacks in DFS tonight.
Okay.
They're one of the I think likeliest teams to go over their team total too. I see 4.8 implied runs in certain places too, so that obviously hits the over for you, and that's their if projections were accurate all the time, we'd be millionaires, but 4.8 projected runs is no joke. So I like that number quite a bit.
Yeah, that game total's at 9.5 right now, and basically a pick 'em too. So I feel like the Cubs offense side of that is where I'm more confident than Steele versus the Cardinals. But yeah, roll with the Cubs here. All right, let's bring in Justin Fensterman here and talk some NFL and some NBA with him. Fensty, you can follow him at Fensty Sports on Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen all of his work at Fantasy Alarm over the years, but lately he's been doing these ADP risers fallers videos that I personally have been editing, so I know they're good over on the website there, breaking down some ADP. What's up, Fensty?
Oh, what's going on, Servo? We had a great conversation because the format of the video, literally the video, had to be changed last time, Servo. I appreciate you dressing it up like that, but I'm sorry to be a pain in your behind.
Well, you gave that info away. I wasn't going to say anything about that. You know.
Well, that's what uncensored, right? We give everything, but we still got up there, man. It's always fun doing ADP TV at fantasyalarm.com. What up, Grande? You ready for our hour today to discuss 3 games at 5 p.m.?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned dress up. So I have to ask, you blinded the hell out of me when you first stepped on this show. And it wasn't because your head wasn't that shiny. Your head's not that shiny today. It was more the shirt than anything. Talk to me about the shirt here. What was going through your mind when you decided to put on that shirt?
I haven't worn orange on BSN lately. I've been rocking the blue, the purple. I got a little bit of a rotation. You get the red in there, but it's been a while since I've rocked an orange shirt, and I was feeling the orange. Aren't you glad to see me?
I am. Well, listen, it works.
Nice.
It works out.
I like that one.
It works out perfectly because we got breaking news here. We got to ask you about is Joe Burrow been carted off the practice field today at training camp for the Bengals? So that orange shirt, you're wearing that in honor of Joe Burrow because hopefully this is not a serious injury for those of us that play fantasy football or anybody that's already wagered on the Bengals futures odds this year. I don't know. What's your instant reaction to this? Obviously, we're kind of waiting and seeing. Maybe it's precautionary, maybe it's a serious thing, but anytime you see this, on July 27th, it's very worrisome.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you can look at it from one end and you're thinking, well, it's better than happening on August 27th. But at the same time, as we really start to kick drafts into high gear, this is my favorite quarterback. And that's a problem right now. I loved where he was going, was seeing him going a lot in the first round, the fourth round, now really moving up to the third round. And you can check out our ADPs on fantasyalarm.com/NFL/ADP. And you'll see them constantly updating also on many different sites. And the thing is with Joe Burrow now, we're all waiting with bated breath at this point because I'm all in on the Bengals offense this year. I love where Joe Burrow was going, favorite quarterback to draft, but also love Mixon too. And even T. Higgins with where he was going. I mean, as great as Jamar Chase is, both Chase and Higgins have proven that they can eat in this offense. So if I can get a share of this Bengals passing attack in the third round where he was going, man, I would have loved that to get Higgins and then follow that up with Joe Burrow. But maybe it's just a little bit of a stinger or something like that. Maybe it's just sore the calf, and that's really about it.
It looks like it's a calf strain. That's the report coming out right now.
Okay.
That's according to the head coach Zach Taylor. So it's a little bit better news.
Better than a tear, but it depends on the grade of the strain. And hopefully, at this point, not knowing what the grade is of that strain, hopefully at this point he rests for about 2, maybe 3 weeks, and then he's back ready to go at 100%.
Yeah.
Calf strains are tricky though, because it's so close to the Achilles, so we have to obviously monitor. That's something so it was Ian Rappaport that's reporting the Zach Taylor news saying that it's a calf strain. TBD on the time frame, Rappaport also says, but he's gonna obviously go in for a multitude of tests, and are we certain as of right now that it's not a Achilles tendon? They're awfully close to one another. So
sometimes the calf injury, quote unquote, calf injury, it could be an Achilles. So hopefully, they said it's a strain. We'll see. I got to kind of throw this right into one of your ADP risers in the latest video was Joe Mixon, and his player prop for yardage total, rushing yards total this year is at 825.5 rushing yards. I mean, this news might impact where you feel about Mixon now for fantasy and betting, but when you say he's a riser in your fantasy football ADP, does it also mean you're willing to probably go over on some of his props, or maybe the other way now?
No, absolutely. I'm willing to go over on his props. And even before the Burrow injury, I was as well. I mean, one of the biggest things I outline in the ADP TV video on fantasyalarm.com is, the offensive line a little bit more beefed up there. So not only should help Burrow, but also should help Joe Mixon. And the fact that he's had seasons where he's missed a few games doesn't faze me from him. I mean, he's had one season that he's played fewer than 14 games. This is a guy who should still get at least 210 to 240 carries at that point. And so I'm thinking that he's going to be able to go over. The offensive line improvements should put him back over the 4 yards per carry, which he did not do last year. So I'm feeling the over on the 825.5 servo for him. And I'm also, by the way, thinking that maybe they throw to him a little bit more. Pirine not there as well. That's something I'm going to be looking at as well, the receptions mark and the receiving yards.
I was going to follow that up with the, do you like the 820? Oh, sorry. Am I a little laggy here, Servo? Am I lagging a little bit? Am I doing a little dance or?
I think a little bit there.
I was just going to follow it up, Fancy, with the 800. Do you not like the over mainly because Pirine's gone and there's really no competition in that backfield?
That's a part of the reason there, but I'm still thinking, again, we've seen this guy go over 1,000 yards multitude of times, and he's still going to be heavily involved in this offense. So I really like that number. So I'm taking the over on that.
All right. How about another one of your ADP risers is Geno Smith, and his over under for passing yards is at 3,900.5 passing yards. How do you feel about Smith in this Seahawks offense for another year? Do you like that over as well, since you like his his ADP where he's going in drafts?
I think he'll be right around there, but do I think he's going to throw for 4,200 yards? Is that a lock? Even getting Zach Charbonnet and Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. I still don't think that's a lock. He was hella accurate last year. I want to see it again, though. And look, I'm definitely willing to draft him as a low-end QB1 for me. We know what he did last year. We know what the weapons that he has. And even though with Pete Carroll traditionally being more run-first offense, still going to get to throw the ball a lot. So I'm still thinking that'll be in that range. I'm not going to bet it, though. 3,900 is a little too risky for me. If you're sitting there at about 3,600, I feel a little bit better. But if I'm feeling he's going to be right around that, like I see Joe Mixon rushing for over 1,000 yards this year, I can't say the same thing about Geno Smith once again throwing over 4,000. So I'm staying away from that one in general.
Yeah. Shane Waldron, offensive coordinator there, loves to run the football, as we've seen. So I like that a lot. Fensty, talk to me about Chris Godwin, because 775.5 receiving yards, if you just like take out the fact that we don't know what the quarterback play is going to be there, seems criminally low for Chris Godwin. But you're wearing ugly orange, like the creamsicle ugly orange jerseys that Tampa Bay has. And maybe I'm alone there thinking those jerseys are ugly, but newsflash, they're ugly. What do you think of this Godwin prop? Do you think it's too low, or do you think Baker Mayfield can get him over it? Because again, he's been one of the best receivers in football when healthy over the last few years.
Yeah, but he's got a shoddy quarterback throwing him the football who we might not know if he's going to be throwing him the football for more than 6 or 7 games. That uncertainty right there really takes me out of Godwin. And one of the things I address in ADP TV, and I get value supersedes all, but if I'm going to take a flyer on this team, I'd rather wait a few more rounds and go with Mike Evans. Like that to me seems like a little bit of a safer bet. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I don't know what the hell to believe in Kyle Trask as well. So as low and as appealing as the number is, this is just another situation, and I address this in ADP TV, where if I can't figure out or have that confidence factor yet in that quarterback, kind of like how I feel with the Falcons as well, then I'm not going to be betting on their receivers. And that means when it comes to the Falcons, Pitts, London, props on them, I'm going to be staying out on them as well.
Yeah, Pitts is the other guy that you have in your ADP video. I won't steal any analysis from there, but I think you're pretty low on, as you're saying, like just the fact that Bijan Robinson is there, I just feel like he's going to be a huge part of this offense, whether it is as the rusher or receiver, and the fact that they have Desmond Ridder as their kind of dual threat quarterback, and what their coaching staff is and what they've shown that they want to probably run here is a lot of Robinson. So yeah, you probably like the under on Pitts. 700.5 receiving yards seems pretty high for him, honestly.
Yeah, and I also, by the way, from what we saw a few years ago, I don't know how much he's going to get in the end zone either, which is why I'm out on him. And I don't know who it was that told me this, and it was one of our Fantasy Alarm staffers who told me, I forgot who it was, that, look, this is when you want to buy in on these guys before they perform so well that next year you have to decide whether or not to overdraft them. I totally get that. I'm more of a conservative drafter, though, overall, when it comes to that. If I don't have confidence in the quarterback and I'm looking at a player that's being drafted inside, especially the top 6 rounds, but inside the top 6, 7 rounds, I don't want to take as much risk on that. Whether or if I can go to the 9th, 10th round, even the 8th round, that's where I'm a little bit more risque with my drafting. And especially with the quarterback, we don't know what to expect from Desmond Ridder. And Servo, kind of like what you just said, everything we read about Bijan Robinson, I know a lot of the focus is on the run, but this guy could do it all. They're going to throw to him. Now you got Patterson, Hulls as well that are going to be competition for targets. So it's not completely bare there anymore. And like you said, Servo, and you're the college guy here at FA, that this guy's an all-encompassing player. And if he's going to be getting targets too, how many targets are they going to really have to go around on a game-by-game basis in an offense that wants to run the hell out of the ball?
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Tyler Algier there too to run the football. He had 1,000 yards last year. Let's not like.
And I want to say this, guys, and I want to get your take on this too, because I've read a few reports and I've talked about it with Howard Bender before. I've read a few reports that maybe they bring Bijan Robinson on a little bit more slowly. They don't immediately give him a boatload of carries. Why? Because they can, and they don't care, nor should they care about our fantasy football teams. They're trying to develop a top talent at the position. And if you got someone there like Tyler Algier, why put all of that pressure on Bijan Robinson immediately when you could kind of slow roll him out? And then maybe by week 6 or 7, he totally is able to adapt on the professional level, and you'll have a better player overall. I know fantasy players who are drafting him in the first round don't want to hear that, but that's where we have to look at the reality of the situation. They've got other guys that can run the ball too. And like we just said, this guy can also catch passes as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have a quarterback that can run in Desmond Ridder. I just feel like they're going to want to, whether it's easing the pressure off of both Ridder and Bijan Robinson, to not give either one too much of a workload / responsibility in the offense. I could see the production across the board being pretty spread out. I think, obviously Bijan Robinson's tough not to draft him in the first round if he's fallen to you, but in fantasy terms, he's been going, third overall in some instances, or top 5. I feel like that's a little bit rich for my taste when you look at some other guys that are proven, but because the fact that they do have Tyler Algier there, it's not like they're just going to completely bench him and give 20 plus carries a game to Bijan. I don't think that's going to happen.
I could be totally wrong about that, by the way. And some of the writers that I've read reports from out there, it just makes sense. Yeah. If you don't have anybody else, then run him into the ground. Let him fail a little bit, see where he needs to work on, and let him throughout the season. But if you have that advantage of having other players that can run the football, and I know the big thing with Patterson is they want to use him really primarily as a receiver, and that's it. But if you got Algier there already, why put the pressure on Bijan Robinson immediately when you can slowly work him in there? Might ease that transition.
I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of that, Fensty, and I'm not saying it from a fantasy analyst. I don't have Bijan anywhere, so I really don't have legs in the race. Like Servo said, I think he's been a little too rich for me personally. In the Fantasy Alarm mock draft that we just did, I took Saquon. I believe I had a chance to get Bijan, I think Howard took Bijan, but I was never in on Bijan at that spot anyway. Atlanta and Arthur Smith run the football. That is what they do. They had the second highest rush attempts last year and the second fewest pass attempts last year. I don't necessarily see that changing. I could see them leading the league in rush attempts using, 17 to 19 carries a game for Bijan and 10 to 13 for Algier, because Algier had 210 carries last year in 7 starts. Think about that. 7 starts, he still had 200 carries, and you're going to start Bijan every game. I still think he's going to get around 300 carries. I don't think it's going to be slow roll. You drafted him where you drafted him. It's kind of like the Saquon thing. When the Giants took Saquon, there was no slow roll. They threw him into the fire, and he had 2,000 plus yards, right? That's the type of player Bijan is projected to be with where he was taken in the draft. So I'm a little on the other side of the fence with where I think, or how I think Atlanta's going to approach Bijan Robinson personally.
Yeah, and if he does slow roll, let's just say he does, he could still somewhat hit value in that first round mark. He could just destroy it from week 5 or 6 on. And again, I'm not stuck on that, but the fact that you've got other guys, and I've read about it, it just makes me curious a little bit. And from a reality standpoint, It does make sense. But James, what you're saying as well, I mean, at the end of the day, what's the overall fact is that this team runs more than any other team, and they're not going to fully abandon it and pull a 180 on it.
Right.
I want to flip gears to some NBA talk, because we know you and James Grande are just kind of the NBA guys, the NBA team, along with Ronas at Fantasy Alarm. And we had Adam Ronas on last week or the week before to talk some NBA futures odds after free agency and different stuff. And I want to ask you kind of what your thinking is with Damian Lillard. I mean, is it a done deal? He's going to the Heat, or do you see another team being that landing spot for him? Because right now the Miami Heat plus 400 to win the East. You got to think if Lillard signs there or is traded there, those odds might shorten. So if you wanted to bet on the Heat to win the conference, it might be a chance to do that now. I don't know. Where do you stand with this whole Dame Lillard situation?
It seems like the Heat right now are the leaders in the clubhouse because they have a legitimate offer. I don't think the offer is that impressive. And I've watched enough shows that try to gas up Tyler Hero like he's like the second coming of Steph Curry. And let's cut that crap out, okay? He's not that. He can bring up the ball. He can shoot. He can move. That's so amazing. You know who else can do that, Grande? Zach LaVine can do that as well, okay? And we weren't calling him the next coming. There you go with the Bulls hat of Steph Curry back a few years ago as well. And so when you have a trade package and this guy wants to be dealt, the Blazers are going to take their time. And that's why when I look down the odds a little bit, do I think that as of right now, the Heat are going to happen? Yes, but they don't have to rush to trade this guy at this point. And without getting players that they could build around or they feel that they could build around back, let's not forget, they've got Scoot Henderson. They've got as well Shaedon Sharpe. And these are guys that can do what Tyler Hero can do. And why people are gassing him up, I have no idea. But before I came on the show, I was actually messing with a trade simulator. Let me ask you guys this for a second. What if the Nets traded Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, and 2 of the 3 first-round picks they have in 2025, 27, and 28? So maybe 2 of those 3 picks for Damian Lillard and 2 second-round picks in 2027 and 2028. Because the salaries match up. So this trade could be made without adding a third team. Can you imagine the Portland Trailblazers defense on the elbow with Jeremy Grant and Dorian Finney-Smith? Despite Yusuf Nurkic's defensive issues, they're not getting to Nurkic with those 2 guys on the opposite sides of the elbow. I kind of like this deal for Portland as well as, of course, the Nets landing Damian Lillard.
What is the Brooklyn giving away again? Run through that.
Brooklyn would be giving away Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, and 2 of their 3 first-round picks that they have between 2025 and 2028.
I don't know. It seems like a lot.
I've said Brooklyn all along. But for the record,
did, yeah,
I think
you did.
I think Brooklyn fits because Mikal Bridges, breakout star. He loves Mikal Bridges. He literally quoted saying he's my dog. And Dame has a tight-knit circle. Benson, the only problem with that is all the reports are that the reason a lot of this stuff is being held up is because there needs to be a third team because they want to get Nurkic out of town. And they want someone to take Nurkic's contract. So I think right now there's going to be like 5 teams, I think, in this trade because whenever this trade is done, wherever he goes, I still think it's Miami. I think Brooklyn makes a ton of sense, though, Fancy, truthfully. I love that landing spot for Dame. They need Nurkic to go somewhere because they are just full rebuild. They need his contract off the books. So where I agree that it works, the reason that I think that some of this isn't is because they can't find anyone to take Nurkic. I don't think that there's a lot of need for, although I think he's a good player, he's obviously developed his game where he's a stretch 5 in a league that you need to be a stretch 5, but he can't play a lick of defense. So getting him somewhere is tough, I think, to get the third or the fourth team involved because I don't really know. Send him to Washington. They're an irrelevant franchise, right? Just send him somewhere where look, no offense. The Wizards have been the most irrelevant franchise in the NBA for the last however many years. It's
true.
Send them there, and it's get them, but how do they get involved? So I like your decision on Brooklyn, and they're plus 7,000 to be the champion. In at the end, I'm looking what is their Eastern Conference odds? 2,200. Imagine getting it plus 2,200 and Dame ends up there. You got it at plus 2. I could see a scenario where a Dame, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson led team, and if you keep Nick Claxton, who's a defensive force up front, that's a great basketball team. Are they better than Boston? Are they better than Milwaukee? I don't know. But I like your trade idea, Fancy, because I've been saying Brooklyn all along. I just think
it fits really well. And other teams like the Knicks have been brought up. But
Right.
Jalen Brunson crushed it as point guard. Why mess up a good thing
can't.
at this point? Oh, you can move Lillard to shooting guard. Lillard's a point guard too.
He's a point guard.
Yeah.
Well, Knicks might get Joel Embiid next year. Who knows?
You know what, though? It's like you're hearing that you're hearing slowly that Leon Rose might have a plan for either Giannis if Milwaukee decides to blow it up, or Embiid. And trust me, yeah, look, that's just what happens. It's been happening since the beginning of time. You had rumors of Jordan going to the Knicks. You had rumors of LeBron going to the Knicks.
Yeah.
And it never happens.
They got Carmelo, though.
Oh, they should have signed him outright. That ruined them for 7 years because Dolan forced the trade. They could have signed him for cheaper in the offseason and still kept pieces like Gallinari and Raymond Felton, who were still relevant at the time.
Wow. All right,
what about Fency? We got another trade.
Yeah.
Obviously looming, right? And I think he's the most interesting player in recent history, James Harden. Like, I think James Harden, because he doesn't care that he's like putting himself on the trade block. But here we are, another season, no fat suit that we know of yet. Yet. We don't know if there's a fat suit involved yet. What is the end game here with Harden? Do you think he plays for the Sixers next year? Do you think he ends up with the Clippers? Do you think he ends up with the Knicks, which has been another thing floating around? Like, what is happening with James Harden? What do you think the end result with the bearded one is?
He can't be trusted. That's the problem with James.
Well, I mean, water is wet.
Well, I understand that, but if you're a franchise as good as he is on the offensive, why do you want to invest in this guy who's not a team player, who's asked off of multiple teams, who does that? There are only 2 players in the league that do that, and he's one of them. And he's done it multiple times. And he has this weird way of taking teams and tearing them apart, like Moses with the Red Sea back in the old Passover days in Egypt. Well, I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. Why any team would want to invest in this guy? Okay, maybe to sell tickets if you're a smaller market. I kind of get that, but he's not a winning piece. So I only see him at this point going to LA in terms of the Clippers or playing with Philadelphia once again. The guy's not a winning piece. And that even, let's say he goes to the Clippers, and Servo, I know you wanted to address this. I'm going into this season like I did last year with the Clippers. Until they prove they can stay healthy, I'm not betting anything on this team. When I saw this team leading in the odds last year, I wondered what voodoo the books had on everybody to bet them. It made no sense. As good as Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are, it made no sense. They can't stay healthy, and they proved it once again. Why waste our money? Throw it out the highway. It'll get better use that way.
I mean, yeah, the Clippers are stuck until they I don't know what they're going to do, because they maybe one more year with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and if they get James Harden. But listen, we had those odds flash up there, and if I could ask our producer to put them back up there, the Sixers, what was it, plus 650 to win the East, and the Clippers plus 1,100 to win the West. That's I kind of put those in our show plan to see, like, all right, if Harden goes there, would you be willing to bet those? I'm not willing to bet either one of those. If Harden goes either one of those teams, I'd rather bet against them, because we've seen Harden's track record in the playoffs. Whatever team he's on, they're not making the NBA finals. They're not winning a title. He plays losing basketball because of his poor defensive energy, is just kind of like inability to move around on offense when he doesn't have the ball. So whatever team he's on, I'm not sold on it. I don't think I wouldn't bet on the Clippers to win if he goes there. I wouldn't bet on the Sixers to win if he stays in Philly. And as a Sixers fan, I hope he leaves. I hope they give Tyrese Maxey the keys to this offense with him and Embiid. I'd rather have Norman Powell and random other pieces back from the Clippers than for him to be on the team.
No, I understand that, Servo, and I agree with you. And you look at this depth, I just don't believe in it. I think the Sixers are very top heavy. Their depth at guard is interesting from what we saw last year when Maxey and Harden both got hurt. And for DFS, our mouths were watering with the cheap price points for guys like Melton and Shake Milton last year, and they still have Melton. But outside of that, that's been a problem with the Sixers, is that I don't trust their depth. The coaching situation, I think, is amazing with Nurse. I think
I
it's
like Nurse.
and
Agreed.
the coaching market this year. I was so jealous that the Knicks, who I root for, had Tibbs. There were so many awesome names out there. It was like going to candy.
Hey, watch that.
What's that?
Watch
I know.
Don't you dare disrespect Thibodeau in front of me.
Because he did so much for your Bulls franchise. I forgot about that.
Hey, we won 60 games and we're a torn ACL from maybe beating LeBron in the playoffs.
Maybe.
Okay?
That's the key. Maybe.
We overworked Derrick Rose.
And look,
this is also
I love Joel Embiid, even though I was Team Jokic to win the MVP. You can't deny how great Joel Embiid is when you watch some of those post moves. They're beautiful, and he's a great player. But at the same time, this team that they're running out there next year, I just don't see them winning the East. Will they potentially be up there in that top 5? Absolutely. I just don't see this conference, to me, still runs through Boston or Milwaukee, even though we saw what we saw last year in the playoffs.
Can we quickly give James Harden a little slack? And for the Brooklyn situation, that was clearly a dumpster fire that he got himself out of. And, this trade rumor comes on the heels of Joel Embiid maybe going to the Knicks. All I'm saying, maybe James Harden can also see the future like the creator of The Simpsons. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so James, how much money are you willing to bet on Sixers futures? And before you do, can you just send it to me instead? I promise you, I'll use it better. I'll go to Chipotle with that money. That'll give us more satisfaction than your futures on James Harden.
I'm not betting on the Sixers because he ain't going to be there.
There you go.
I'd rather bet on the Sixers if he's not there.
True.
All right, Fancy, we gotta let you go here. We awesome, it was like strong 30 minutes of NFL and NBA talk. Appreciate you joining us here. If you haven't already, go follow him on Twitter at Fensterman Sports. He'll be on the MLB DFS show, cutting up with James Grande, pulling double duty today on Bettor Sports Network. So definitely stay tuned for that, and you can get some more baseball talk with him and James here. Appreciate it for just joining here. Well, we'll have you on again soon. I know that for sure. Thanks, Fensty.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right, so some NBA and some NFL talk. Before we get out of here, we got to give some more picks out to the people. And by the way, Shohei Ohtani threw a complete game shutout in game 1 of this doubleheader. It just went deep in game 2, hit a home run.
Dude, it's
so unfair. Stupid. It's unfair. And honestly, at this point, I want to see the Angels in the playoffs. I hope they make it work because we got to see him in a series, let alone a wild card, but definitely in a series and competing here in the fall. So, but yeah, that second game of the doubleheader is going on. But we do have 3 games tonight, small slate, but we gave out our best bets earlier. Any other picks you want to give out to the people for tonight?
Yeah, we'll go through some. Justin Steele over 5.5 strikeouts. Cardinals in the month of July, Servo, 27% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching. They do have a pretty solid OPS, but 27% strikeout rate, 3rd highest mark in the league. Justin Steele just faced them, had 9. I really like Justin Steele tonight as kind of a, he's getting pretty disrespected. Cardinals are implied a bunch of runs tonight. So I like the strikeout prop. I think he's back into Cy Young type form. So Justin Steele over 5.5 Ks.
Yeah, I like that. That's why I was leaning towards the Cubs in this game overall against the Cardinals. But I do think, Steele on the mound he's been really good and definitely Cy Young contender now. I'll stick with the Cubs here side of things. Throw out Nico Horner over 1.5 total bases. This is a play I gave out for the MLB Underdog Picks article over on Fantasy Alarm if you want to see some more analysis. But the guy's been on fire since the All-Star break. He's hitting 407 over the last 7 games. He's been over 1.5 total bases in 4 straight and 7 of the past 10 games. And I mentioned Michaelis just having some issues, especially at home. 4.95 ERA at home this year. I think he's going to run into trouble against this red-hot Cubs lineup. And Horner, good career numbers against Michaelis, 9 for 22, 409 batting average. So I'll take that, and I'll go over his total bases.
One of my favorite DFS plays tonight, too.
There we go.
He is such a good hitter. Like he is He is Luis Arias light with the bat. Like he can control the bat
from the right side.
From the right side, from the opposite side. Yes, from the opposite.
All right, what else you got for tonight?
I love that. I'm going another. You teased it earlier. I'm going an under here. Taylor Motter in the Cardinals lineup tonight. Under half a hit, -125 on DraftKings. He's hitting ninth. Look, he might be pinch hit for before the night's over to begin with. So he might not even get a full night's work. On the year, Servo, we have an 11-game sample, so it's not a big sample. He has 5 hits in 31 at-bats. He has 4 hits in his last 29 at-bats. I mean, he has 1 hit his last 4 games played. He has been around baseball for a while, and he's just not very good. And when you look at Justin Steele's splits, righties don't do a damn thing against this guy. It's actually the lefties that give him issues. 092 ISO, 275 WOBA allowed, everything on the ground, big ground baller for Justin Steele. Good luck getting a hit off him, Taylor Motter. I mean, you're probably going to be back in the minors sooner or later. No offense, but I have to go under half a hit.
Under half a hit. Oh wow, 2 unders on the player props for hitters.
2. You know what? We did. John and I did the RT Sports plays yesterday, and we both took unders, and it was our first hit of the week. So I'm now going full bore under. Like I'm sold. I'm off and running here.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'm going with an under here, but for a pitcher, and going with Tanner Beebe under 2.5 earned runs. I just really like how well he's been pitching right now. He's over his last 4 outings in July this month, 1.14 ERA. And he's allowed 2 earned runs or fewer, so under this prop in 5 straight starts. And going back a little bit further, less than 3 earned runs under this prop in 11 of 15 total starts this season. The guy's just been really good and really consistent too, pumping out strong outings. His road ERA at 4.38 is a little bit concerning, but I also think it's misleading. He gave up 6 runs to the Padres in one of those road outings. But otherwise has been pretty good. And he's got the White Sox here, bad against right-handed pitching all season. And over the past week, one of the worst in the league, a 292 WOBA overall this season against right-handed pitching, 269 over the past week. Bad batting average, low walk rate, which is a key for BB. Sometimes he has troubles with the walks, but that probably won't be a total issue tonight. So I like him under 2.5 earned runs at plus money, plus 100 on DraftKings.
Yeah, and I think you said the last week for the White Sox. The last
they've been bad
against right-handed pitching. It's the last month they're dead last in OPS, WOBA. It's everything. And again, it just always comes back to the same thing. Like you can see flaws on teams. They're right-handed heavy. Like they just have a ton of right-handed bats. They don't have enough lefties to attack from that side. And they got the lefty they just got back was Yohan Moncada, who's hitting 100 his last month in baseball. So yeah, good luck. And I'll parlay right off that, or Servo. I'll stick with that game. A large reason Tanner Beebe, whatever, is gonna keep this game under 8.5 runs. And I think the same can be said for Dylan Cease, which we talked about earlier in the show. Both these pitchers going tonight are coming in pitching at probably their best forms that we've seen all year. And it's even money, -110, both to the over and the under. I don't think a lot of runs are going to be scored this game. So I'm going to take the under in the Cleveland-Chicago game. And I'll just throw out one more pick. The Mets over 2.5 scored runs in the first 5. I think they're going to get to Josiah Gray tonight. I don't know if you saw 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing out in New York City today. And it's 95 degrees. So really, really good hitting weather. Josiah Gray's been really struggling in the power department lately. He did. I mean, there's a guy who allowed 40 home runs last year. So if we're going to start seeing that rear its head again, good luck in 95-degree weather with 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. So I'm going to go Mets get to Josiah Gray.
I love that. And that plays right into our daily dingers for tonight because we both got Mets here. So let's get to our daily dingers for tonight.
Now that's a dinger.
So the weather combined with Josiah Gray's issues with the power, and we both got Mets guys going deep. I could have picked a number of ones, and I like yours too at better odds, but I'm going with the easy, low hanging fruit, Pete Alonso. I mean, at plus 285 on DraftKings, and everyone knows the power hitter that Alonso is, but 21 of his 28 home runs have come off of right-handed pitching this season. So he has the better power against righties. And you mentioned the issues with Gray allowing power, especially, more power to right-handed hitters this season. And Alonso versus Gray in his career, 3 for 9 with a home run. So I'll take the polar bear to go deep.
Love that, and I probably would have gone the polar bear if you hadn't gone the polar bear. That's the issue with inputting stuff second. Like you beat me to the punch. So I love the Alonso call. I went Brandon Nimmo plus 400 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. He's been really good against right-handed pitching this year, especially in power department. 223 ISO. And you did mention the righties have given Josiah Gray a lot of issues this year. 173 ISO allowed. But last 60 batters that he's faced from the left side have a 250 ISO and a 450 WOBA. Again, the fly ball rate's up for Josiah Gray. There's wind tonight. The Mets have one of the better implied run totals of the night. I think there's going to be a lot of home runs flying out of Citi Field tonight. Give me Brandon Nimmo plus 400 to go yard. And again, I think Alonso goes yard too. So I think we could just pat ourselves both on the back because I think they're both.
There we go. All right. Well, let's hope and that'll help your Mets team total in the first 5 go over too. So
sure will. Sure will.
All right. So that about does it for us. Again, stay tuned at 5 p.m. Eastern here on the channel, at Bettor Sports Network. We got James Grande and Justin Fensterman back for some MLB DFS quick pitch live show. And then 6 p.m. Eastern, the Alarm Fantasy Baseball podcast. So stay tuned for all that coming up here on the show. Appreciate everyone watching here. We'll be back tomorrow again at 4 p.m. Eastern, as we usually do here on Bettor Sports Network. This has been Bettor Sports Betting. Good luck with all your bets tonight. Later.